Avatar Aang, the hero who ended a 100-year war, united the world, and brought peace to generations. But behind his legend is a truth few speak about. Because Aang didn't die on the battlefield. He didn't live to old age. He died young, too young. And the reason why will change how you see everything that came after. This is the untold story of Avatar Aang's final years, the silent battle that no one saw. Let's start where it all began. Not the war, not even Sozin's comet, but the iceberg. When Aang ran from the weight of being the Avatar, the storm that struck him wasn't just physical, it became a spiritual curse. Frozen in suspended animation for 100 years, his body was preserved, but his life force wasn't. Time didn't stop. Inside that iceberg, Aang was still connected to the world. His spirit aged, slowly, quietly. And when he emerged, the world had changed, but he hadn't. Except he had. By the time he was physically just 13 years old, his soul had already endured 112 years. It's something fans often overlook, but it's crucial. That spiritual aging never reversed, and it haunted him for the rest of his life. After defeating Fire Lord Ozai and bringing balance to the world, you'd think Aang could rest. But peace isn't easy. In fact, sometimes it's harder than war. He didn't sit back. He didn't take time off. Aang worked harder than ever before, leading peace talks, founding Republic City, preserving airbending culture from extinction, and guiding a broken world into unity. But all of that came at a price. Unlike other avatars, Aang was carrying the guilt of being the last airbender. He felt personally responsible for preserving his culture, not just spiritually, but physically, through his children, his teachings, his monuments. And over time, that pressure became its own war. His duties never ended. Even during moments of joy with Katara and his children, his mind was always somewhere else, burdened with the responsibility no child should have had to carry in the first place. We often think of the Avatar as invincible. They're the bridge between worlds. They command all four elements. But Aang was something else. He wasn't just powerful. He was peaceful, and that made him vulnerable. Aang meditated more and more as he aged, not to find answers, but to find clarity. He knew he was dying, quietly, internally. Even Katara noticed. She asked him to slow down, to take time for himself. But Aang, ever selfless, believed he had no right to rest while the world still needed him, especially knowing that he had already lived 166 years. He often spoke to his past lives, Roku, Kyoshi, even Wan, but none had gone through what he had. None had lost their people like he did. None had frozen their destiny in time and returned to a world they didn't recognize. By his late 50s, Aang's health began to fade, but not in the way you'd expect. There were no major battles, no injuries, just fatigue. His bending remained strong, but his spirit flickered. He began to detach himself from the physical world, spending longer in the spirit world, sometimes for weeks. He told Katara he felt more peace there, as if his spirit was preparing for something. Some historians believe Aang actually began merging with the spirit world before his physical death, slowly phasing out, the same way the Avatar state bridges life and energy. He left fewer public appearances. He entrusted more duties to the White Lotus and the early United Republic Council. And then, one day, he was gone. Aang died in 153 AG, at only 66 years old. To the public, it seemed sudden, but to those close to him, Katara, Tenzin, Sokka, Zuko, It was the end of a long, slow goodbye. Some say he died in his sleep. Others say he passed while meditating, eyes glowing faintly one last time. There are even whispers that his final breath was drawn inside the spirit world, his body simply becoming an empty vessel, like the calm after the storm. No one truly knows, because Aang didn't want a spectacle. He didn't want a monument. He wanted peace, in life and in death. Despite his early death, Aang left behind a legacy that reshaped the world. Republic City, a place where nations could live as one. Tenzin, his only airbending child, who would carry on the legacy of the air nomads. The White Lotus, reformed into a force for peace and balance. His wisdom, preserved in statues, stories, and spiritual memories that would guide Korra. But perhaps most importantly, he left behind balance, not just between nations, but within the Avatar cycle itself. Because when Korra was born, she didn't just inherit his power. She inherited a world shaped by his compassion, his losses, his choices, and that meant everything. So why did Aang really die? It wasn't because he was weak. It wasn't a random illness. It wasn't even fate. Aang died because he had already given everything: time, spirit, peace. He had nothing left to give, and yet he gave anyway. He was the last airbender, the first modern avatar, the only one who bore the weight of 112 lost years and still smiled. Aang didn't die because he failed. He died because he succeeded, completely. And in doing so, he made space for the next avatar and the next chapter of the world. If you stayed with us this far, you're clearly one of the true fans. Let me ask you, do you think Aang knew he was running out of time all along? And whose story should we tell next? Iroh? Zuko? Azula? Leave a comment and let's uncover more of the untold story.